right? So I went around and looked.
It's been working for,
Yeah.
oh, let me see ya.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll begin with the good news from Mr. Sadoff.
Well, quite a variety of good news this month. It's kind of a fun meeting to do it for. We have things elementary, middle school, high school, art, and activities of different kinds. I had in there some of the posters from the Black History Month poster contest in the middle school and the artist statements with them, as well as a link. Channel 5 interviewed some of the students about their work. More art news I had from Emerson Elementary, and I know you each have at your place an Andy Warhol style portrait of yourself. It was a middle school project that was pretty neat, and I put that in there. I shared my, I must say, with the different colors, I'm much better looking in the portrait there that I put in the packet than in person. We had I think a pretty touching thing for one of our drivers, Terry Appenziller, who's battling cancer, is at home now, and the transportation department organized a bus parade past his house, and I think that was pretty meaningful for him and the drivers too. And I put a couple pictures of that in there. There's a picture and a list of the National Honor Society inductees from this year. Also the community service hours from our Silver Cord students, which really impressive when you look at the hundreds of hours of community service some of those students have provided. Then I have some more pictures from the life skills classroom, and we're doing a lot of real world measuring and work with some cake baking. Their friend from Germany sent them some cakes so they could compare German cakes with American cakes. Something I took off Twitter from our track and field 4x100 relay record. And then a picture of our National History Day gifted and talented students who are proceeding to the state contest there. And then Mr. Singleton, one of our 8th grade math teachers, did a Pi Day activity where they were memorizing pi. I'm sure they did this March 14th. I know 3.14 for pi, but the winner here recited 168 digits of that. So pretty impressive. So kind of a variety of things for good news for everyone.
Thank you, Art. Any board members have anything? All right.
We're just in the process of working with the movie theater for the Screenagers showing. We're just waiting we're looking at May 11th. It'd be a Tuesday. It would be on all the screens there, and then I think we're going to have a screen 2 for childcare. So being able to show like Tom and Jerry or something for any of the parents that have younger kids. So Screenagers is basically a show on the physical and mental harm that social media and screens can do to our kids. So we had over 400 people signed up last March when we were supposed to show it. And so May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so hopefully we can get that solidified and then get that pushed out to our community. And we're looking at a 5 to 6:30 showing and then a 7 to 8:30 showing. And I'll send that all out when we confirmed kind of all the details and everything. So I think Art and I thought really, and Ray, really like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, 9th would kind of be the target audience for this showing. So hopefully we'll get a lot of those kids and their parents to come out for that, and grandparents to come out for that, and everything else. So yeah, so we'll probably, with the child care, probably use some of our Silver Cord students and Wesley Scholars and stuff out of Simpson. So I'll keep you posted.
Thanks. All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Anybody has any questions, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made by Ben to approve,
I'll second.
seconded by Carolyn or Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is our presentation by our TLs.
Yep.
Let the TLC go.
Okay.
Good. You can use the mic there, sure.
I don't necessarily need it, but come on up. My name is Stacey Evans. I am the teacher mentor coordinator for the district. I've carried this role now for the last 3 years. And over the course of those 3 years, we've developed a pretty strong and positive environment amongst our teachers new to the district, veteran teachers that are also coming in, as well as transfers that are within. The growth that's happened, I shouldn't say growth, but through the course of these last 3 years, in 18-19, I had about 31 teachers on the roster, from first year, second year, third year, the veteran teachers, and then the transfers. In that second year then, we moved up to 32. There was 39 total with transfers, but 32 that I was able to mentor throughout the course of the year. And then this year was our largest year that we've ever had. With the additional 4 remote teachers, there are 44 teachers now on the roster. Teacher Mentor Coordinator is a great title. It's just fancy for something that gives me a gift to get into classrooms and help support teachers who are new, who are transferring from one grade level to the other, as well as those who are coming from another district. And those mentoring programs can serve differently than what we do, and therefore with that, I think the best place for us to start is to get feedback directly from teachers that it involves. And so today, there are 4 teachers that are going to speak on behalf of the program. What it's like to them, I think hearing it from their perspective, they're the ones who I get to go into the classrooms. We also utilize our TLC coaches in the fact that instructional strategies are implemented in the classroom. We reach out to CNI teachers, our PLC leads. There are various amounts of ways these teachers are served and mentored that are beyond me, and I think it's important for you guys to hear from them. So 4 of those, we're going to bring in one that is a brand new first-year teacher, another that is transferred within the district. Courtney will be joining us here in a little bit. She is moving from another district, from one district to another, so it'll be interesting to see the perspective of how those things have shifted now that she's at Indianola. And then also a teacher that represents the integrated core, and how we also have an integrated core coach who is able to support her. So I will hand this over to them.
Hello everyone, my name is Matt Baker. I'm a 5th grade elementary teacher at Whittier Elementary. I am the first year. I'd like to thank Stacy first off for letting me talk to you guys about the mentoring programs. I do believe it is something that is extremely important. Like I said, I'm a first year, so as a first year teacher, some of my biggest concerns going into the crazy world of education is what support staffs am I going to have. So I'm going to have unlimited questions. I've always been that student that I'm going to have questions after questions, like how can I get better, how can I get better? And knowing that I have that support staff already in place, and that was in place from day one. Like, I was super excited about getting my first year job, but like again, I'm going to have questions. And going into orientation, those questions were already at ease. Like most of it's your teachers, and Stacy was able to talk to us right away, like, hey, if you have an issue, we're here for you. We're here for you. That being said, the mentoring program has really prepared me, because each time Stacy or my building coach comes and watches me do a lesson, like they're going to give me instructional feedback on something that can go better. And for me, I'm someone that really looks for constructive criticism, and I want to hear what I can do better so I can help prepare my classroom and help my students succeed. So that's something I look forward to every day, every time someone comes and watches me, and it's something I really take as a positive aspect. Also, with that being said, Stacy is someone, my building coaches, other building coaches are people that I can go to for questions whenever I need. Questions about curriculum. I'm a first-year teacher, so I had questions about curriculum all the time. Questions about standards. I know I'm at Whittier, I'm 5th grade. My other partner teacher she's 13 years under her belt, but we're in a new district. So we have questions about how this district works. We were able to reach out to Stacy, hey, we don't know like standards here, like what we're supposed to be looking up, like what are we supposed to do? She was able to get us connected to not just building coaches, but also other 5th grade teachers in the district. There's 4 other elementaries. So that was one thing that was really, like I want to learn from veteran teachers that have already taught in the 5th grade level, been here for years. So she's helped me create like relationships with teachers, other 5th grade teachers, for me to reach out whenever I need to get their advice. And like I said, I want to learn from those veterans. Also, like I said, getting us in contact. There's a big day she did a retreat day for us. We were able to go for a day or half a day. We were on our 1:30 schedule at that time. We were able to go to other classrooms. I was able to watch other 5th grade teachers to see how they were teaching lessons and what I can do, how I can watch them, what I can get from them to help better myself as an educator. But no, the mentoring program for me has been something that I really look forward to. I look forward to the advice that I get, and I'll continue to look forward to it because I'm gonna need it just as much next year and the year after and the year after that. So that being said, thank you, Stacy. So, all right, that's all I got for you guys. Appreciate it.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Bishop and I'm speaking representing the transfer teachers. I originally started off teaching years ago in Waukee. I long-term subbed and taught in the Indianola district for many, many years, mostly in the kindergarten long-term area, at Irving mostly. And then last year I was a pre-K teacher and this year transferred to be a kindergarten teacher at Whittier. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk to you all today because this mentor program has been a wonderful thing that I've experienced and at just many different levels. Not only working with Stacy, who's been wonderful and just very encouraging and just troubleshooting with little things like passwords not working, finding all the different resources I need to get started on that transition. She's also just been really encouraging and reminding us to make time for ourselves. You don't have to live in your classroom. Just little reminders. She also does monthly newsletters for us with different goal setting opportunities. So the resource she provides for us are just kind of unending, that continues on and on. I also use my coach within our building. My coach is Kristen Scott. And I've used her for multiple things as well. I talked with Stacy and she's like, well, Kristen would be great for this. And so we kind of all have brainstormed together. And I've had Kristen come in and video small groups. We kind of had an intervention program that's always done at kindergarten level and it wasn't working this year with our kids. Our kids were kind of higher than the program was. And so we researched and found a different program. Kristen came in, mentored us with that. And we've used that and implemented it within our classroom. It's called PALS, and it's working wonderfully. So these are just all different things that she kind of, we come with ideas and she redirects us or gives us other alternatives. Also, I've used Erin Feldman. She's an Irving mentor coach. And I've used her. She's been wonderful for all of us with Seesaw, and I speak with her regularly. And how do I do this? Or I want to try to do this differently. So it's just across the board, the coaches that are in place have been incredibly instrumental in the success of the teachers within the classroom. And this year was a crazy year. It was a different year for most of us. The technology aspect was enormous to have teachers and coaches that could kind of come in, teachers within our own building. I worked with Kristen Tyson, who's a wonderful teacher over at Irving, a kindergarten teacher. She helped me. She's the CNI, which is one of our lead kindergarten teachers, just with report cards, and we kind of brainstormed back and forth, well, how are you doing your learners from home this year? And we just kind of did all different strategies with that. So with the CNI teacher, Kristen Scott, Erin Feldman and Stacy, this has just, in my opinion, been a very wonderful program that's allowed success. It's encouraged all of the teachers, and I don't even think just new teachers. I mean, Kristen Scott as a coach within our building works with teachers who have been there for years, but it encourages us all and reminds us of the importance of being lifelong learners. We can always do better. We can always learn more. We can always try something different, and by having someone else come in and give us input and give us an idea of a different way to try something maybe we've always done a certain way before. So in my mind, the coaches are instrumental in the success of the teachers within the classroom, not only for our sanity, but just to make us better, just to push us and to remind us of what we're there for. And so I've been incredibly appreciative of the opportunity to work with Stacy, with Kristen, with Kristen Tyson as well, and Erin. So I just wanted to give my input on that and the wonderful opportunity that I've had so far. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alicia Kazmarek. My husband teaches and coaches, so he's at the high school. And this is actually my 9th year teaching. I taught for 8 years in West Des Moines, K-6 art. And so here I get to do K-5 elementary art at Wilder, and then I also do 8th grade art at the middle school. So I'm the point of view that's the integrated core, but also a veteran teacher. I think the biggest gain and the biggest difference in the mentoring programs that I've experienced were not only the immediate connectivity that my first colleague talked about is, connecting to everyone district-wide, but also it was immediately personalized. I would say the biggest difference is we weren't all sitting in a room getting information just thrown at us. You're new, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. It was, here's some information, this is how we're going to use it. What are we going to do your first day of school? Just really getting that information out that was immediately useful. And the fact that we are, learning as we're going to. It's in the moment, it's during classroom observations. It's not for hours on end at night with another mentor and, a room full of people talking. It's in the moment, it's learning. I would say the biggest part of having both Stacy as the new teacher mentor and I guess the coaches and the integrated core coach, so Denise Bealey, it's just been really nice to have them as advocates, but also help facilitate those connections throughout the district and then throughout the community too. Just being able to, being a specialist teacher, it's very easy to kind of get stuck on your own little island, but having Stacy and Denise continue to help facilitate our PLCs or helping reach out, and then going to different classrooms too, just to see how we're all approaching our different curriculums. But I would say, the biggest things and benefits of having the coaches is just someone in your corner who is constantly supporting you and cheering you on and getting the ins and outs of the everyday life of teaching, no matter if you're brand new or if you've had a few years under your belt. So, yeah.
Hello, I'm Courtney Onstadt, and I teach first grade at Wilder. So this is my first year to the district as well. I started off my first 2 years at a very small school district. Our mentoring program there was, if you were a first or a second year teacher, you were a part of just kind of monthly meetings, checking off kind of a to-do list. Where I transferred then to a much larger school district, their mentoring program was kind of similar. If you weren't a first or a second year teacher, you were not a part of any sort of program. With that being said, where I was new to this district, I didn't really know all the ins and outs, and I also didn't really have a person to turn to ask those questions. So you often could feel like you're on an island, or how was I supposed to know about that, or who do I ask about this? So then coming to Indianola, something that's been unique about this mentoring program is that if you are new to the district, you are a part of it. Having that resource has been awesome. We have Stacy in our corner all the time. It's been so great to have that person to turn to with any questions. And if she doesn't know the answer, she can help point you to someone who does. Something that's unique about my team this year is our 3 sections of first grade, all of us are new to the district teachers, and my 2 teammates are brand new teachers. So I'm the only one that has taught on my team before, which has been an awesome growth experience for me, taking over that PLC lead, and it's been awesome growth opportunity, but there are also things that I don't know the answer to right off the top of my head because I'm also new to the district, so it's been great having Stacy as that resource to turn to for our team. Someone else that's been vital in helping my team succeed this year has been Shelly Powers, the CNI lead teacher at Emerson, or she's one of them. She's been awesome at sharing her resources with curriculum. If she finds awesome resources, she shares them with us. If we have questions, she's someone that we can turn to easily. And she's been really great kind of taking our team under her wing in a sense to help us be successful since we are all new teachers to the district and we're all new to first grade as well. Someone else that's been vital in our success has been Emily Steele, our instructional coach. She has been awesome with assisting with all of our needs. She was checking on us quite often, most of the year, to make sure everything was going okay since we are such a new team and 2 of my teammates had never taught before either. So she's been great at finding us resources. If we have any questions, she was there to help us. If we wanted to implement anything new, she was the first person that would say, hey, let me go find this for you and set it up for you, and do you want me to show you how to do it first? Like, I can run it for you one time, you can watch me. And so that's been amazing. And I don't know what our team would have done without her this year too. So those are just kind of a few experiences, but those people have been just awesome at my success this year as well as my brand new team. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a question, like, this is maybe to Stacy, I mean, do we at the elementary level ever have like groups with like all first grade across all the schools get together? I mean, it sounds like they kind of go through you and there's kind of informal things, but do we ever kind of formally group
Sure, that's a great
grades?
question. So, if I understand it correctly, you're asking if the first grade teams across the district do have a time to get together?
Yeah.
So, up to this point, our PLC time has been more building because of the situation. But they have produced some Zoom meetings and allowed them to go district-wide. It's been a push, especially now with the 4th quarter. I've said you really need to advocate for, making sure we're going to implement a new curriculum soon. And we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page with those curriculums and the standards and the benchmarks. And I know the coaches have done a great deal to kind of put that in front of our teams. But it is something that we do value. We try to get them together, but as far as face-to-face, because of the circumstances, they're doing it via Zoom.
At 5th grade, we haven't met quite. We've met, I think, two times in person. We've done some Zoom stuff too. Yeah, that was set up. You helped us out with that, and Kristen Scott as well as helped us out. That was something that was very beneficial to me first year, and then also my partner teacher, which was new to the district, just being able to answer questions.
I'll add to that, there are some very unique situations. In Courtney's grade level, all first grade teachers are brand new to the district. At Whittier, both of the 5th grade team members are new to the district. So we really needed to outsource to make sure that they understood and had the PLC and the CNI teachers helping them in the process. Otherwise, I mean, it's really we're on an island trying to figure things out with themselves.
My compliments. One of the things from my readings, somewhere along the line about successful organizations that have a lean on me mentality can get a lot further. And it's nice to know that we have a program for our people where from day one, they have somebody they can lean on. So thank you all for partaking in it. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming. We've been asking to hear from you, because you brought some last year.
Yes.
So it was nice to hear from you, and Jennifer, I did care for her, and she loves having the support.
Yeah, it's great.
She truly enjoys it, so.
If you like board meetings, you can stay.
Yeah.
If you're ready to go, you can go. We have Travis from Dr. Sandler here.
Yes.
Yeah, exciting.
sweet.
I was trying to make her nervous by not showing up right at 5:30.
Hey, we got another.
See if she started sweating on it or not, so. Yeah. Might as well hand them both out. Here, give me those 2 piles. Those for myself. You guys are good with me ripping this thing down so you can read my voice and I don't talk like that.
So he doesn't have what you projected. You want me to just send that to him?
He won't have this one. Top secret. No,
We
it's
had our bond sale today, and it went very, very well.
yeah. You want me to hit bond sale too at the same time?
Might as well.
Okay.
Then you don't have to hang around for it.
I'll take that offer. I can get in the kid carpool line then and figure out which kid I'm picking up from where.
It's always something else.
Yeah.
See, I'm like, ooh.
All right, going to take kind of a two-part presentation here. I'll start with the bond issue, reported sales stuff, probably in late this afternoon. Walking through what you received on bids. So today was the day we were receiving refinancing bids. So this is refinancing the 2016 GO bonds, which I think we're refinancing of the 2007 bonds. So second refinancing of that debt. There's only 6 years remaining on that debt. So a couple things to highlight. We went through the bond rating process again. District's bond rating was affirmed at the AA3 level, which is pretty similar to districts of your size. There's not really any overarching concerns that the rating agency has keeping you from a higher rating level. It's just really tax base size. So as they see the tax base continue to grow, that provides a little bit of upward mobility on your rating, but AA3 rating is very solid. Today you received 8 bids on your refinancing. In this case, you had the winning bid from Robert W. Baird. Second place bid came from Country Club Bank, and then FHN, Huntington Securities, D.A. Davidson, Northland Securities, Raymond James, and BOK Financial. You can see the bids ranged from 0.58 out to 0.7, with the top 2 bids being really close, within 0.001 or 0.01%, a 584 and a 591. So the controlling bid ranking here is by that true interest rate. It's essentially an average rate that also includes the fee that the underwriter bids when they submit their proposal. So it's kind of the industry standard for awarding. You have a kind of a unique circumstance where the net interest cost of the second place bid is actually lower than the first, but that's not what the standard bid parameter would be. So Robert W. Baird is your winner at the 0.584. One thing that is unique in the way they submitted their proposal, and you kind of see this across all the bids, if you're looking at individual interest rates, you see 5. And then with Country Club, you see 4, and 3 and 2, and then you see others with 3. But the other variance that you see between the bids is what we call the purchase price. So how much are they going to pay you at the bond sale? In this case, Robert W. Baird, even though their rates are 5%, they're paying you $8.5 million for $7.3 million of bonds. So a massive bond premium, which then allows us to resize the bond issue down. So what really controls the award are what the yields are, and you're going to see that on the second page. So overall, bid ranking, we're really pleased with where this ended up. Jonna asked where we'd be. She's like, I already heard where DCG was with their bids, and they were what, 0.6?
They were at 0.6, so we beat them.
You beat them. I kind of laugh at that. I know you guys like to compare those bids, but like no 2 debt structures are identical, so the average rate is take your trophy and you can move on. I'm gonna work on ordering a medal that says 0.58 on the front. Jonathan hanging on her door.
So why did they do that? 8.5 million? What's
So-
the advantage of that?
One unique thing right now, so think about the purchaser of these bonds. So these are tax exempt bond securities. So a lot of these bonds end up in bond portfolios. So like a municipal bond mutual fund, and having those kind of consistent coupons, they would rather trade cash today for a future payment stream that's potentially higher.
Okay.
And really that's just a function of the market. If you were to kind of step outside.
It's kind of
what-
the resale.
kind of what happens in Iowa, the standard, what I'd say coupon rate is 5%. So it makes it a very tradable in and out of portfolios. In Iowa, with a lot of what I call smaller issues and bank qualified debt, we tend to not see as many 5% coupons. But in particular with your issue being short, there wasn't really a penalty for having a 5 versus a 4 or a 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you turn to the second place, this is the actual bid submitted by Robert W. Baird. So you see the 5% coupon rates, and then you see the yields, 0.16 out to 0.67. So an investor who is buying your 2027 maturity, which would be a 6-year investment, they are going to earn 0.67% on that investment. Now, doesn't that sound really exciting for your portfolio return? These are tax exempt, so obviously they have the benefit of the interest not counted against future taxable income. But overall, this is a lot of what we've been seeing in the markets right now. Really low rates. Yours in particular really did do some outperformance. These bonds are not callable, so that also helped. There's no intention of prepaying these, obviously, at where the yield levels are. Does that make everybody good on that bid? Okay, how does it all come together? This financial summary is kind of the program file that I use to talk with Art and Jonna. The components you're going to want to see are kind of down the left side, right in the middle of the page. Your finance committee saw this a little over a month ago when we met with them. I guess it's back in January maybe. Or no, it was February, 2 months ago. If we're looking at the savings, $262,000 as we call the nominal savings, so that's the total savings. If we discount that to what we call a present value, it's still in that 262. You're saving 52.8% of your remaining interest cost on this debt. So that's after paying for financing costs. You're essentially slashing the remaining interest on your debt in half on this transaction. Any questions there? Okay. Following page then does just pick up the new debt schedule. We have multiple components that we typically break out. I could have hid columns 3 and 4 here. They're just repeats of 1 and 2. You pull that over and I do have some hidden columns. So if you do look at column 14, that picks up your debt levy rate going forward without any valuation growth. So you're right at the 405 this year. Your minimum going into next year is at the 346 and 346 the year after that. And then you can kind of see what's available within your 405, which does lead a little bit into our next component of the presentation. So overall, gives you a slight kind of overall debt portfolio picture. And then the final page does pick up your overall refinancing savings over the last 5 years as we've been working through your debt portfolio and saving interest cost up to $8.3 million of refinancing savings based on the actions that your board and previous boards have taken. So this is predecessor to your later resolutions that John will walk through. Any questions here before moving on? Okay. So the next component then picks up a financing capacity overview. For those that are on the finance committee, some of these pages will look familiar at the start. Try to do things that look familiar and they're repeated so that you can easily pick up maybe some changes that have occurred. I want to walk through your debt profile. A couple things that come into play when we talk about how do we determine what your bonding capacity is. And then we're going to talk what I'll call a debt capacity discussion. And I'm going to say that this is more the 10,000 or maybe 20,000 foot view as opposed to trying to get into the weeds. It'd be easy to pull this out, and I know you've been talking some big level facility structure topics and say, well, okay, we talked about issuing debt at this, so the board is going to go out and sell $60 million of debt. You know, and I don't want that to be the message that kind of comes out of this, but I do want to kind of talk through a couple of the strategies that we might employ for looking at your next round of facilities. My assumption is, as we get into the weeds, that this is going to prompt that, hey, maybe this makes sense to kind of hash this out in a larger work session type setting, as opposed to try to handle everything tonight. But I'm always good for as many questions as you want to ask and shooting from the hip with as many responses as I can give you. So do feel free to kind of ask whatever you want on the questions as we go through. I'll try to keep the presentation component brief so we can get to a lot of questions. So if I'm skimming through something fast, just slow me down. So on your debt profile overview, your valuation history summary, which is on page 4 of this packet, it picks up 2 different valuations, and they're both important for separate reasons. There's one that says actual valuation with utilities. This valuation is useful really for one metric, and the metric is your constitutional debt limit. So as a school district in Iowa, or any municipality in Iowa, you will be limited to debt outstanding that is equal to 5% of that valuation. And you're going to see these numbers on the chart later, so if, you don't have to write all of this down. When we get to the taxable valuation, that's what drives your levy rates. So the difference between actual and taxable has to do with the way that different rollbacks are applied on classes of property. For example, residential property in Iowa has a rollback rate applied that it's only taxed at 56% of the assessed valuation. So before everybody freaks out, we all got our assessments in the last week and did the calculations on how high they went. Just recognize that if valuations went up that much around the state of Iowa, it's likely that there's going to be an adjustment on the rollback rate. So you might have saw your assessed value grow by 8%, but if the state rollback rate resets by 4%, you might only see a 4% increase in your taxable valuation. So that's the danger of getting this in April, and they're going to set this in October, so we know what those numbers are. But it is a statewide formula. So the bad part is if you have growing metro areas that valuations are going up rapidly, and other areas of the state where valuations are flat or going down, then it's a 3% limit statewide on residential valuation growth. So us in the metro area may get penalized a little bit for that, where people in rural areas, the rollback rate would help them out. So you can see very strong growth. Would say maybe it's tempered a little bit. You do see some 9s and 6s. The last couple of years taxable growth has been around that 3 to 4%. The reality is when you get to $1 billion of taxable valuation as a district, it becomes a lot harder to grow at 9% than it was when your valuation was at $650 million. It's just that many more new homes. So you do see rapidly growing communities continue to add big chunks of tax base, but on a percentage basis, it might be lower. All right. Moving on to the next page, this is more just a breakout of your class of property, so you see it across those 2 classes, and then I have the change highlighted in orange from year to year. So if you're reading through this, you can see a few changes throughout your property. One thing I will note that is perhaps a little bit confusing is that if you look on the commercial line item, you see 25 million of commercial growth. If you go down to the TIF valuation, you see 29 million of decrease. Those are offsetting to each other. It's just the way that the information is presented. The valuations up above are before TIF, and then the TIF valuation is separate. So obviously a nice component for your overall general fund levies, as the city has released some TIF valuation that's allowed your overall levy rate to move a little bit lower as well.
Does everybody know what TIF is? I know I do.
Tax increment financing rate.
Yeah, so we can give the 30,000 foot view on TIF is that a government entity, meaning a county, or in this case, the city, can designate an area as an urban renewal area. That urban renewal area then has a specific list of things that can be accomplished. It can be economic development purposes, a new industrial park. And a city could decide that we're gonna use TIF because we need to put infrastructure in. Maybe that's, water, street, sewer improvements in order to complete that project. So we're gonna capture some of the valuation growth that's going to occur and use it to pay off our debt obligations. Another thing that you don't have as much in your community is slum and blight remediation. We do see this more in some of the older metro type communities where their infrastructure is crumbling, so a city can declare that slum and blight and then use that to improve even like just old water main, sewer separation stuff that we're seeing kind of as you go down the Iowa and Des Moines River. There's a lot of that occurring. So the only way that a city or county can claim those valuations is if they have debt against it. So they just can't bankroll a bunch of TIF dollars for a future project. So they actually have to have issued debt. All right, moving on is just a tax rate component. One of the things that...
I guess I have a question about TIF.
Sure.
So the TIF, the big thing at TIF in Indianola is out by the Y, right?
That's the biggest.
Yeah. And how much longer does that have? Wasn't it like 10 years?
Typically they're 20.
20, okay.
Unless there's slum and blight, which made them, they could go on forever. Or if they're pre-1995, they also don't have a sunset. So I don't think those are pre-95.
We're about 10 or 11 years into it.
Yeah. So as I say, I think you're about halfway through. I can look that up for you.
No, that's okay. That just was...
No problem. So the next page then picks up tax rates. I think the thing I want to hit here is just overall, as you guys have done a nice job of bringing down your tax rate over the last couple of years, it hasn't made a huge difference in the overall rate. Obviously the counties had a pretty significant project, and the city levy rate is a little bit higher than it was a few years ago. Some of that may be attributed to not claiming as much TIF valuation, but overall your residents have paid a fairly consistent tax rate in that, what I'd say, kind of $39 per thousand range. That's all the way off to the right in that top table. And then you can see down below the individual school district levy rates between your various PEPAL, Pearl, debt service, operating or general fund and management fund. All right. Okay, so this is a little bit bigger snapshot of your general obligation debt summary. Again, the column you're going to be focused in on probably is off to the far right, your levy rate, and you can see even without valuation growth, significantly under 405 going forward, which is what allows for some potential capacity. District has been pretty aggressively paying off debt early, so you've had a 405 debt service levy for many years. And in doing so, we've basically been saying, well, we can levy 405 this year within the budget. We'll take future debt service and pay that off early, thus either shortening your debt service payments or just lowering your future annual payments out into the future. So this has been a tool that the district has been utilizing in order to deal with the potential for future growth. So a lot of growing metro districts are using this as a strategy to allow for capacity. You do have constraints that are pretty real. Most districts now around the metro, if they've got debt outstanding and the way that construction prices have gone, if you were to just say, hey, if we didn't have any debt outstanding, could we even build a brand new high school? And the answer for a lot of districts around the state is actually no. And so that's an issue, obviously. You guys are in a pretty good position where you could still do it, but what you're going to see is it's phased and it's going to have to include sales tax. It can't just be all general obligation debt. So That's some of the reality where you've got 3% valuation growth and construction inflation averages over the last 20 years for school construction has been much higher than that. So 20 years ago, you could likely answer yes to that. Today, it's a little bit more difficult circumstance.
So if I'm reading this right, when we get to May, the district would be, from these bond issues, 37 million in debt.
Your total levy, that's inclusive of this fiscal year. So if you get after your payments this June, that number is actually 33 million of total debt payments remaining. Yep.
Left, there's principal left is,
Uh,
how much do we owe?
31.6, but you'll make a $3.2 million principal payment this June, which is going to put you at 28.4. And you'll see that a little bit later. I do have those numbers later. Okay. The next slide then picks up sales tax revenue. This is the one that is, most, I guess I won't say you're under leveraged, but creates a pretty good opportunity for the district. Right now, you have about 12.5 million remaining. You will pay about 1.35 million off this July 1. And your debt only goes out through 2029, and recently the actions of the legislature extended that tax out through 2051. So you have roughly $3.5 million of current revenue, and those revenues are forecasted out into the future. And page 8 at no change. Page 9 then does pick up 1.5% growth. And so you can see if we're just looking at surplus revenues on page 9, we're looking at $122 million of potential future revenue. Well, that's inclusive of future or revenue this year on the surplus. So 120 million of surplus after this fiscal year. But that is out through 2051. So you're not turning that into $120 million worth of projects today, but it does represent a strong opportunity for bonding without impacting property taxes. Good. Everybody good there? All right. This component is now where we're heading. There's not going to be probably as much details as some of you are craving on this, is what I'll probably lead with.
I'm going to go back with a question,
Yeah.
is to Jonna. So I mean, historically, we've used the sales tax a while ago, years ago. We didn't do bonding with it. We kind of, I don't know, we call it cash basis, or just kind of did projects that popped up. And then several years ago, we did use some of it for bonding, which, a lot of districts do that. But I just kind of want to throw that out there to people. I mean, it would be a shift, like if we did, and I'm not saying we do it all, but if we shifted to using it for bonding, there'd be an impact to, it's like squeezing the balloon here and it pops out over here, to some degree. Yeah.
Right now, we have 3 different bond issues that are revenue bonds. And is it 5? 5 of GO bonds, I think, 5 or 6.
It will be 5 after
It will be 5, yeah.
after this year.
So yeah, we have, it was used, a lot of, we use it for middle school, field house, for that was before, it was before my time that you used it, so.
Projects in 2011 and 2012 were
Right.
primarily when the
Okay.
debt was issued for sales tax.
So right, and then, there is a statutory limit, you can't bond all of it, am I right on that, Travis?
Yep, we'll hit that.
You get to that?
Yep. So that leads well into the consideration. So first consideration, to your point, Carolyn, is the one thing that does happen with sales tax is you lump that together with your PEPAL revenues, and the district has a lot of ongoing things that you're utilizing. So a lot of your technology work, transportation, buses, some of your general maintenance, all is coming from the combination of PEPAL and sales tax. You've also been able to do a couple nice projects on a pay-as-you-go basis where the district has banked that surplus and had revenue available for the next project. So that's something you could be doing annually as you move forward with your other capital needs as well. So a couple considerations. Debt limit is going to be the first one that I'm going to hit on. It's probably the most significant, and in part because there's a nuance within the law that creates a potential issue. John is familiar with this. At Gilbert, the district was always teetering on their debt limit. Norwalk has been in this boat where they've been at 99.9% of their constitutional debt limit. The reality is that the 5% limitation on debt limit is one that creates an issue, but only because we don't have clarity on whether or not sales tax debt counts against the constitutional debt limit. So debt limit is the amount of debt or principal that can be outstanding at any given point in time. So the maximum debt outstanding as of July 1, based on your valuations, is $84 million. Does sales tax debt need to be included? The law explicitly says no. It's written in the law. This will not count against constitutional debt limit. However, you will not find an attorney in the state of Iowa who will give you a clean opinion that you can issue sales tax debt because of various case law that causes them to have concerns. Now, there's been different districts that have said, well, somebody needs to litigate, somebody needs to get this figured out. What's the solution? It clearly says in the law that it doesn't. It's supposed to be tax-backed debt or property tax-backed debt, depending on your interpretation. If you take the strict property tax-backed debt as being what counts against your constitutional debt limit, just like you would, for example, with a city. A city might issue debt, they issue general obligation bonds to do a street improvement, counts against their debt limit. If they issue sewer revenue debt to fund wastewater treatment plant improvements, does not count against their constitutional debt limit. So you take a local option sales tax or a statewide sales tax and determine to me, well, that's a revenue debt, but is it taxed? Is it a tax that should count against the debt limit? And that's the clarification that nobody has. So some of my nuance in going through this is that some of your answers to how you can fund projects do depend on whether or not we can get an opinion on this. Resolve, you may be the district who needs to take up the mantle and go forward with this. So put that next to your, John, put it next to your .58 medal on your door. Nobody has really volunteered for this. Most of the times you grow your way out of it, right? It's on paper, it looks like a problem today, and then you're able to phase a project to get around it. And I think that's still a possibility for you guys. So if we look at what's outstanding as of July 1, it's 28.4 of GO debt, as mentioned earlier, sales tax debt at 11.1. So your total including sales tax debt is 39.6. Remaining, if we include sales tax debt as of today, is 44.4 million of projects. Now, every year, if you get valuation growth at 3%, it's going to increase your debt limit by $2.5 million next year. If you just have your normal debt repayment cycle, you're going to pay off $4.5 million or $4.7 million of debt. So going into next year, if you kind of follow that remaining debt limit, well, it's 44.4 today, goes to 51.5 the next year, with just 3% valuation growth and no work to prepay outstanding debt. And you can see that this kind of slides down about $6 to $7 million per year. If you get a big bump where you see a 5 or 6 or 7% valuation growth, that clearly has the possibility of moving this. Now, if you could just slide off the sales tax debt and remove it from the equation, your 44.4 remaining becomes 55 remaining, which jives essentially with about where your debt limit capacity to issue new general obligation bonds would be, which is going to be our second topic. So we have debt limit as one constraint. The second constraint we're going to talk through is bond. Yeah, what's that?
If we would do anything else, if we don't, in 2025, we'd have the capacity to bond at 94.
94 would be your debt limit. Your remaining, though, is 71 because you still got 23 outstanding.
The column to the right.
Yeah, go to the remaining debt limit.
Okay, got it.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Keep in mind that this isn't always controlling of how big your projects are. If you're able to bank $5 million in sales tax and apply it to the project, that obviously is a debt issue that would count against your debt limit. Or if you find some generous donor who wants to write a check for $5 million, that also doesn't count against your debt limit. Or if Art just donates his retirement in the future, you can. I haven't picked on you today, so just picking on John. I figured I'd spread.
Name a building after you.
Easy, we already have Bernie.
Oh, man, what an honor.
I'll probably have to sleep in it after you roll.
Oh, so you're not just buying the RV and traveling around with that, okay. That makes sense. Okay, so bonding capacity, and this is where there is a little bit of confusion, because we are debt limit and bonding capacity. And for the person who's not dealing with finance acronyms all day long, those both sound like the same thing. I need to differentiate. One is just the constitutional limit, and the other one is more how much revenue is driven by your formulas. In this case, the bonding capacity is based on your 405 debt service levy and your taxable valuation. And then you have to fit principal and interest payments within that calculation. If you're in a scenario where interest rates are low, then within that fixed payment, the principal is larger, meaning you can fund more projects. So you can absolutely fund more projects within bonding capacity in a 2% interest rate environment than a 3% interest rate environment. So in addition to looking at how you might phase projects with construction inflation, borrowing at a lower rate today versus I'm not a rate forecaster, but it's likely that rates will be higher at some point than they are today. So you may have some opportunities in a low interest rate environment, I guess I'd say, to get more bang for your buck with respect to your fixed payment within the levy. So what I've done is looked at a couple different debt issuance sequences. So all of your borrowings against general obligation debt are limited to 20 years. But just because that's limited to 20 years doesn't mean that your financing plan is limited to 20 years. Because I could issue a 20-year bond in 22, in 23, and 24, all 20-year bonds, but now I have a 22-year financing plan repayback. Does that conceptually make sense? So there's ways to kind of stretch these, and it does match, cash flow for phasing projects. So if we look at these debt issuance sequences, and these are mutually exclusive, so don't add these together. A debt issuance sequence from 22 to 24 would allow you to have $47.2 million of projects. A debt issuance sequence from 23 to 25 at 52.5, and then from 27 to 29 at almost 72 million. This is only voted general obligation school bonds. This is not touching the sales tax in that top section. So we're still going to be responsible for meeting the debt limit constraints with general obligation debt, no matter what.
Did you just throw the 27 out there just to kind of show you the delay?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. And really the delay is accomplishing two things. Really you're just paying off debt, you're getting a little bit of valuation growth. But waiting for valuation growth, you're going to be likely behind construction inflation. So that's problematic from that standpoint, that you don't keep up. But from the standpoint of having another year of debt paid off, the one thing I will say is that in that 27 to 29, I did not take into account that, well, what if the district kept your 405 levy up? Because if you kept the 405 levy for those years, if we just go back to, and I'm not asking you to do this, I'll just give you the numbers. In the next 2 years, you would pay off $1.2 million early. If you go out the following year, it would be another 1.2. So
We have the right to pay off early?
Yeah. You just levy ahead. And
You're just saying keep that at 405 on page 7.
Yeah, and that's what you've been doing. By the time you were to get out to 2027, which would be essentially 5 more budget years, you would likely have paid off another $5 to $6 million. So that component isn't factored in just because it's a year-by-year decision. So if we go then to sales tax debt, and this is just a borrowing sequence that I looked at right now, what you could actually access this summer, if you wanted to. And the only constraint you would run into, it's not a public vote. You already have the revenue purpose statement in place. So the only thing you would have is a public hearing as a board to specify what's the approximate amount you would borrow and what you are using the money for. In this case, looking at different 10, 15, 20, and 30-year commitments, you can see various project funding levels from 13.9 million out to 42 million. So, on paper, bonding capacity wise, let's look at the debt issuance sequence from 23 to 25 at 52 million. And then if you were to add 20-ish years of sales tax debt, you would be at about $82 million of projects, essentially that you could start today and be completed with in 2025. That's bonding capacity, but we don't meet the debt limit test unless we get a ruling on sales tax. So, you can issue the debt from a legal capacity on ability to afford and prove out levies and get market access on the sales tax. Your constraint right now is on the legal side if you're trying to do all the projects today. So if we kind of look at a couple different strategies that were laid out there on your plan B with replace in place. And
These would refer to the 4 different scenarios that I sent you that, okay.
Was that at the end of last week?
Yeah, I think it was maybe Thursday, I saw the email. If we were to look at this kind of first project, and it was built in multiple phases, and it was at 98.5 million. And what you can see here is there was an initial phase 1 at 10.2, a second phase at 65 million, a third phase at 23. You're still going to be responsible for meeting those debt limit constraints under this, but I do think that there is a financing strategy that would play out here. You could do a GeoBond referendum for phases 1 and 2, perhaps with a little bit of sales tax support. So you remember I showed you a scenario of 52 million, but this goes out to 28 on construction. So you're moving a little bit closer to that 70 million scenario. So those first 2 projects at 75 are pretty close to that third sequence that I showed. It's not perfect, but pretty close if you did debt repayments. Phase 3 could be then completed with a combination of GeoBonds. Again, we're out a couple more years, but you could use sales tax debt, and then that would be more of an as debt limit became available. I think if you look out through 28, and you were to reference back to that debt limit chart, what page was that? Sorry. That was on page 11. And we look out to about that 26, 27 range, you've got 77 million of debt limit available. So you could do this first strategy and work through those debt limit constraints for the first couple phases. The third phase, I still think it's doable. It just gets a little bit tighter depending on how quick those phases go. My experience with phasing projects is, well, the phase looks good. We got that one done. Come on, we're ready for the next one. Let's move. Let's not wait. The problem you're going to have is just there's a few moving constraints that would force you to wait. Strategy 1, though, I like the best if we don't have any clarification on sales tax. That's just purely from a financing standpoint. I don't know how disruptive that would be from education. To have that feel like you're working on that building for 9 years. That might feel long. You might feel like you wish you were doing it faster. But that's what you get. That's what you pay the architects the big bucks for, to figure those things out on how you work through those phases. Again, likely able to work around the debt limit concerns because of the project phasing. If we move to strategy 2, which is the one I would be like, if I'm a board member, yeah, let's get it. Like, we know what we want to do, let's just keep it rolling. Yeah, I know that we'll be consistently constructing, it will take, 3 to 4 years to get it done. This one seems problematic from the debt limit constraint. Only to this, I think from the affordability, we talked about that. This would line up with that 23 to 25, that $50 million issuance, and then adding sales tax. I do feel like you can afford this from the bonding capacity. It's the debt limit if we don't have clarification on the sales tax. So if we get clarification on the sales tax in the next year or two, I think all of these strategies are on the table.
That comes from the legislature.
I don't think so. I think it's likely going to have to come from litigation. So, got anybody who wants to sue the school district for, no, I'm joking. But in reality, there's talk about what's the best way to get clarification. And it may be that a district has to move forward with a financing plan saying, hey, the law says it doesn't count. We're gonna go issue the debt. Somebody could challenge that. If somebody challenges it, it likely ends up in the Supreme Court, you likely get a ruling. So, it's not clean, it's not messy, you're not the first district to have this conversation. We had these conversations 10 years ago when the original tax was, and the district who was probably the closest, two districts that were the closest were probably Norwalk and Ballard. Ballard, right after they built their new high school, they literally, they issued debt on like June 30th, got their new valuations, and then issued the rest of the debt on like July 15th, because the new valuations kicked in. I mean, they're that close to finishing up their project. So they were able to work around it. You guys are kind of in the same boat, and one big year of valuation growth. Again, remember you guys have all seen your property tax assessments. That could be a big year of growth. You could have some commercial industrial growth on valuations. Any of those big years helps reset this another 2 to 3 million, which then kind of compounds going forward. So, strategy 3. This had multiple phases. I feel like this one probably works pretty well around the debt limit. It's not quite perfect. Through 2028, I don't think you quite have 89 million, but you're getting pretty close to having that within your debt limit constraint. So strategy 3 to me seems a little bit more feasible, obviously, than strategy 2. I like strategy 2 from an overall cost standpoint, but I think you're going to have to get the clarification on debt limit. Strategy 3 is what I call kind of the almost there approach. You're almost able to do what we think you can do on strategy 1. It's just not quite as good. Strategy 4 was the really let's just wait and do it later. This was 105 million. I guess I'm missing a comma there. 105,666,943. Still building it in one phase, but the phase waits. Good news about this phase is there's a good chance if you kept the pedal down on the 405, you could have almost all of your general obligation debt gone at that point. And all of your sales tax debt would essentially also be gone at that point. The problem is, you come back, you only have 106 or 103 million of debt limit total by 2028, 2029, you're at 106. You still may be in the scenario where you're scratching by on debt limit. I think this is more similar to how debt limit would be on strategy 1, where you're close enough, you probably can work it out and get the phases to work, but it's not all that much better than strategy 1, to be honest, with working around your debt limit. Yeah, you have all your debt, and this also assumes that we've somehow pegged these construction inflation right for 9 straight years and didn't miss on that. And interest rates, who knows? All right, I'm using rates right now in my scenarios that are about 1.25% higher than today's rates. So if today's rates would be 175 on a 20-year borrow, I'm using closer to 3. if we were to look historically, over the last 10 years, 3 would be a little bit higher than average, but if we go back 20 years, 3 is probably a little bit lower than average. So there's obviously some risk in these scenarios. So if I'm trying to boil this back into a summary, I like the big picture thinking that's going on. Clearly, you guys have reviewed some pretty good options with respect to how you might accomplish this. I think as you're planning going forward, while it seems really daunting to say, don't worry about the sales tax debt, somebody will potentially take it on, I do think in the back of your mind, don't just limit yourself to the debt limit number. But hear me right, you have to still think about it. You can't just go forward, hey, someone else will take care of it. You may be the one who gets to take care of it, but from the standpoint of limiting yourselves and how you're thinking about facilities, I would hesitate to only limit yourself to the debt limit side of the equation. Because I think on the table for you guys is, what do we want Indianola's education programming to look like over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And I think limiting yourself to something that doesn't have a legal resolution today from thinking about what you really should do from that standpoint, I don't think you should limit yourself at this point. Eventually, yeah, you're gonna have to limit, but I don't think that should stop you. And I'm gonna call this the dream phase, if that's appropriate. I know you're putting some numbers on this and really trying to think hard, so that might be a little bit sliding, but we're still in this early phase of trying to come up with a number. And I like showing you both, recognizing that there are some legal limitations with the sales tax right now.
So I have a question.
Yep.
So as a variation of strategy 3, if phase 1 happened in 2003 and 23 to 25, and phase 2 was a lot longer than that out in the future, how does that hit up against like strategy 1 where you got it kind of gapped out?
Pretty close. It's pretty close. You might just be a year or two early on phase 2 on that one. Otherwise, I would feel it'd be more similar. Depends on what side of that 26 you need the money. Because right now in 2026, we're talking about needing $88 million of debt capacity, and in 2026 I'm showing 77. So if you were able to slide that start down to 2028, that would make me feel a lot better about it.
Or even later. I guess that to me that was kind of.
Yeah, what are those two? That second phase is 20. What is that?
It's the gym.
It's the gym.
Basically, there's $1 million add-on or addition to the VOAG or the vocational area that can be added to the other. It's $1 million only. So
Right.
the big piece is the gym.
Yeah, and that phase, keep in mind, that phase 2 construction cost probably becomes a little over $1.1 to $1.2 million more expensive each year.
Yeah.
That we slide it back to. But I don't think you'd have to slide it back a considerable amount of time. I think sliding it back a year or two probably gets you much more to how I feel about strategy 1.
And Travis, can you talk about the 2022 strategy 1, 2022 to 2024?
Okay.
We have the ability to go up to 20 million.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so in looking at the phases, not the phases, but this was on slide 12. So of those debt issuance sequences that you have, through 2023, you're gonna be limited to about 20 million of new debt, which only really creates an issue. Actually, I don't think that creates an issue, John. So I don't feel like that's a problem right now.
Restriction.
Nope. I would say the only one that potentially created a problem was strategy 2, but given that that's a 4-year construction sequence, I think you'll have a hard time spending 20 million based on probably the route in which you're going to do the work.
Any questions for Travis?
I know there's a lot of information to get dumped on, you didn't have any of it in advance, so thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
Yep. I'd say next steps, certainly in just kind of thinking through, take a little bit of time to digest, think through questions, and as we kind of work forward, most boards would do some sort of work session. We could even do it at, expand your finance committee and do a work session in the morning, or something along those lines. Just kind of drill into questions that I know would probably be a little hard to formulate on the fly, getting this presentation for the first time. So we're always willing to come down and do a work session with the board, or do it on a regular meeting. Either's fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll work on getting that out of there. You just have to wear it around, Dell.
Yeah, it's kind of just a G.
Gotta fly if we're getting out of here by 7. Right.
One thing I was just kind of wondering, do you think it makes sense if people are listening, if they even understand why we're talking about what we're talking about? I mean, I don't know if someone's just listening to this meeting for the first
For
time.
the first time.
Yeah, just so people aren't taking it out of context.
That's a really tough question, because the community hasn't come to us. We've been doing some master planning and some
Yeah.
thinking and all that, and I don't know how Art or any one of us could give a good answer right here at the moment. So I think we have to work on being able to have a good press release for the community before we do it.
Right. I mean, we're just trying to look at strategy of what we need going forward, how we can get to there, look at a lot of options at this point,
Yeah.
not making decisions yet, because we do have a lot of steps like you're talking about with the public before we come to some conclusion or have a vision of what we're saying. Yeah, I just wanted to call that out in case someone's watching this and going, what's going on?
What your facility needs.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you want to make sure that you can even afford it. That
Right.
was kind of, is this even a possibility? And I think that's probably part of what this was part of.
I think it's the right thing to do. I just want to make sure if someone's watching this that they understand what we're doing as opposed to maybe just catching a little bit of what this meeting was talking about.
Thanks, Karen. Right. You're ready for G1, Teacher Quality Committee.
Yep, we had a teacher quality committee meeting. This is the meeting that equally represented between teachers that are chosen by the bargaining unit and then by administrators who've been approved. And we mainly talked about focus groups and some possible changes to focus groups. It's a pretty short meeting. I provided the minutes there. I don't know if you have any questions you want to ask. Otherwise, I think the minutes reflect what we talked about.
Any questions for Art? Okay. Go ahead and move on to the school improvement, the SIAC committee meeting.
I read the report as inclusive, but did it mean that all the citizens we asked to be on the committee showed up that night?
Yes, they did.
Really?
Yep, it was a very good meeting. I did have one late board-approved member who just ran into conflicts, couldn't be there, and that reflected that in the minutes. But yeah, everybody was there. It was a great meeting.
They had plenty of time to talk?
Yeah, and
Okay,
it
you're
was
still
all.
alive, that's good.
It was all conversation. It was just a very brief welcome and thank you, and then a solid hour of conversation, and then Mrs. Duran did a lot of kind of collating in between the meeting to capture the major themes. So it was a good night. I don't know if you want to speak to it at all, Mr. Duran.
And we achieved our goals for the participation, conversation, and those 4 strands that were listed there will be our next level of work. And asking for some more specific intentions as far as how we move the district forward in some areas.
Are there just 3 of those in that?
At this, because of COVID this year, we did need face-to-face for these, and for next year, we're looking at the possibility of 4 to 5. It depends on the outcomes of this, and if any other district needs occur at the beginning of next year.
We're just trying to get all these ones in before the end of the school year.
Just some for continuity, plus they need to take a look before the end of the year at some of our educational goals, and get input on those. That'll be part of the state report next year.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? Okay, next is the 2021-2022 school calendar.
I put on there that administration wasn't recommending action, but I do know there's some desire for conversation. This is the board-approved calendar, so if some action comes out of it, that's up to the board. Just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of where we're at tonight and how we got there. We had a calendar that we did have some teacher input on that was approved by the board previously, and at the time of approval, there were 2 calendar requests that a member of the handbook focus group requested, and one was having 2 full weeks of winter break. We had proposed a 12 calendar day winter break, and received feedback that was the quote was nothing short of cruel at that time, just based on the period we're coming out of and the need for that break. The other request that night that the board approved the calendar was to have 2 flex days for teachers instead of 1. And flex days basically recognize work that teachers do outside of regular contract days. We had tried to capture, for example, some of the trainings they have to do and time required for that. The handbook focus group member stated at that time that the inclusion of flex days is a practice with a long history in the district. I do know that this current school year we had 2 flex days, and that was the first time we had flex days, I know, in at least 7 years. So when we presented those calendars to you that night, the board had a lot of conversation. We had given some possible options for achieving those requests, and that night the board eventually approved the calendar with the 2 full weeks of winter break. Did that by adjusting the start day and then having the day before Thanksgiving be a student attendance day. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving we have had as a day off the last 2 years, I believe. And then recently I know that the handbook focus group member reached out to the board with a couple of requests that were made. And one was that the day before Thanksgiving, again, be made a non-school day by reducing winter break, basically undoing that change that the board made that night. And was also suggested that the Irving year-round calendar school start date then would be on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday to accommodate that change. I do want to know we would have to change training plans and contracts we have if we made a calendar adjustment change to the start of the year there. The other request from that focus group member that emailed the board dealt with parent-teacher conference time to expand to 4 hours on Tuesday plus an hour and a half on Wednesday and all day Thursday. And that committee member had talked with a counselor and several elementary teachers. She said that extra Thursday hours were necessary to reach all the parents. With parent-teacher conferences, definitely middle school, high school has less participation than elementaries, and spring has lower participation than fall. The handbook focus group member had referenced that we can count some of that parent-teacher conference time as instructional time with students, and we're limited to 2 days of that, so we would run into having more time than what would count as instructional time. I know we did some surveying this fall about whether or not there's adequate time for conferences, and that survey said that the middle school had 3 hours of time in there that they were not conferencing, and the high school had over 5 hours. I do think one thing that might have added to the concern about not having enough time for conferences was on the board-approved calendar, we didn't have verbiage on there that said that Wednesday early out, that time would be used for conferences. That is our intention. So we would capture that hour and a half. So if you have questions about the adequacy of the parent-teacher conference time, I know John did some computation of that, looked at how many slots were necessary versus the time allowed. If you have questions about the contracts and training scheduled for the start of the year, I think Mrs. Duran can probably speak to that. But I just wanted to give some context there. But those were the two requests that I think I'd emailed to you, just to put those out on the table here.
Any discussion by board members?
I'll just say that I'm comfortable with our what we approved last time.
Okay.
I don't know if this is actionable, I can't quite understand.
It's on, I mean, it's on under discussion and action, so if the board did want to take some kind of action.
So do we need to vote if we want action?
Yeah, you would need to, if you're making a calendar
Okay,
change.
how about this? I approve that we reapprove what we approved last time. Like I approve no changes, and then we can get a vote, right? If someone seconds it, and then we vote, and if it's not?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have to vote on no changes,
Oh, okay,
because you wouldn't be taking an action.
okay. well,
But
I'll
this
take
is
that
in the
back.
action part of the calendar in case you want to make changes.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So if someone wants a change, they need to,
Yeah, I would think you want to have a motion and a second, then you can have more conversation if you want it, and you can take a vote if the board.
So to add the hours on for the elementary, that's not a big deal then, as I understand it, if they need the hours.
That could be done, that impacts that does impact your instructional time. There would be, if you're adding additional hours beyond the 2 days that we can count as instructional time, then we'd need to, it wouldn't necessarily be a calendar change, it would reduce your number of hours with student contact. Right now, is it half a day Thursday scheduled for conferences, or what's on the approved calendar?
Half day Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were gonna go all day Thursday, in effect, you'd be,
You wouldn't have that wouldn't be instructional time.
yeah, you'd be taking 4 hours off your instructional time.
Yeah, there's half a day Tuesday, half a day Thursday, and then that hour and a half of PLC time on Wednesday, which may or may not.
So that would be a calendar, I guess I would consider that a calendar change, because you wouldn't be having students attend on Thursday in the afternoon. Or right now, the approved calendar has students attending half the day on Thursday,
Attending all day.
or all day,
Yep,
okay.
all day on
And
Thursday.
the proposal they received is to have them attend half the day.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be a change. Right now, they're scheduled to go all day Thursday. If you want to,
They're gonna be in school all day Thursday?
They were going to be, right?
That's
From
the
what
way
we
the calendar
approved
is
last
approved
time.
right now.
I thought you said we had conferences Thursday.
Thursday evening.
Evening,
Tuesday
okay.
yeah, that
evening
4
and
hours
Thursday
at night counts as half a contact day with kids, even though it's after the school day.
And then,
So they're gonna conference Tuesday night and Thursday night?
Tuesday night, Thursday night, and
Wednesday
Wednesday
afternoon.
afternoon after the early out, yeah.
4 hours Tuesday night, 4 hours Thursday night, and 2 hours Wednesday? Is that it? 2 to 4 on Wednesday?
Hour and a half, yeah.
90 minutes on Wednesday.
You're thinking, I know you want to say something, I want to hear it.
It's tough to get all that in. I mean, it is, people stay over, they run over conference time, I mean, it's hard to get it all in.
One of the things we've used this year was the Zoom conferences, and that made it, I think, really slick. I know teachers liked it, a lot of teachers liked it, a lot of parents liked it. It was easier to have start and stop times, and the transition it wasn't there, so.
6 conferences in an hour. That's what we did, because you have they're scheduled every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's what the schedule was set up, so we had them
Not at elementary.
at middle school.
Oh, okay.
No, but elementary was 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's usually 20. Yeah, I mean, some people are really good about going 15 and leaving it, some people aren't. That's just the way that.
Long-winded too.
But, yeah, I get the middle school and high school. I understand, I get that part of it. I just think the elementary is tough to get it all in.
Any other discussion?
I guess my biggest frustration is, this seemed to work really well last year, and there just seems some unhappiness from, some people on the committee, and I realize the committee isn't an authoritative thing, but at the same time, if we're gonna have committees, I feel it's important we have a back and forth and listen to committees. Otherwise, there's not a point of having a committee, right? So I'm just confused. I really
They
wish.
surveyed the teachers before they came to us with their recommendations. Because the way I read that was that they came to us and then that we tried to do the recommendations that they had to the best of our ability. And now all of a sudden, teachers are upset the second time. So was it even brought, did the committee even bring it to teachers with their recommendations to begin with, or did they just come in here?
We didn't survey anybody, like there were, I mean, whatever that committee brought from whomever their constituents were,
It's
whoever
just the
they.
committee that.
Yeah.
What percentage of the stuff would you say that the committee wanted was actually made in the calendar we voted on?
So the calendar that administration presented, there were two things that they didn't get, and it was the additional flex days and the 2 weeks at Christmas.
Everything else was,
Everything else was in there.
okay.
And then that got changed. And what they didn't get, there were three things. They didn't want to start on Monday. They wanted the Wednesday before Thanksgiving off, and what was the third thing? Additional.
But we did that to accommodate a 2-week break.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that does point to some of the complexity of the calendar.
Yeah.
You can definitely prioritize. It is tough to get every single thing without something else changing. And I think one thing that maybe is different from last year too, to go back to Ben's question, was we had probably not really adequate professional development time, including some half-days in this year. And that was one thing that did change throughout the calendar process, just out of concern of the new curriculum we have coming and some things like that. There's a pretty strong feeling the half days weren't sufficient there. And I don't think I'm putting words in anybody's mouth or stating that anyway. Ms. Struan, is that?
I think you had that conversation with the principal about that. I think it was more total days. They had taken it from 7 days this year down to 4. And we can't accomplish what we needed for that number of days from the professional learning side
From 7 to 4, you said.
of having professional learning time. But
So
that doesn't have anything to do with.
the calendar that came out of committee before some changes had just four professional development days on it. Is that okay?
Oh.
And that would have been, as a committee leader new to the calendar, no excuse, but not really knowing exactly how many professional development days when we were talking with the committee, and that could have been their frustration too.
So it was 4, and then you realized you needed more after the fact.
Yep. Especially with the new curriculum.
So I have a question about, at the beginning of the school year, how much time do the teachers get in their classroom before school starts, before they have to be ready? Because some years I taught and I had half a day. It took half a day just to write the names on the kindergartners of everything I wrote their names on. So all the rest of that time, I only had a half a day to get ready for school. And all I got done was write that down. So all the rest of that was on my own time. So that's what I want to know is how much time are they actually going to have in their classroom to get their classroom ready? And I understand that high school and middle school don't spend that kind of time, but they don't put up, math, they don't put up nearly the things elementary teachers have to put up in their classroom.
So there's a flex day, and then there's a work day and then a building meeting day. And then the two the 2 days for curriculum.
So we did have 2 flex days, now we only have 1 flex day.
Remind me again, what was the reasoning behind that? I think you mentioned it one of the last meeting maybe.
On the flex day?
Yeah.
I think it just comes down to really how many student contact days you want, how many hours. I mean, I think you could add another flex day, but right now we have, is it 178 contact days with students? So if you know, we have enough extra hours or hours above the minimum of 1,080 that, you know, you could repurpose a student contact day as another flex day for teachers and just subtract that 6.5 hours from those that you have over the minimum. I mean, that was part of that conversation that night, I think, with the board.
I think we wanted to try to maximize the contact days because of this year. Not that one day is gonna make or break anything, but not try to whittle contact days.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally the board's discretion. You know, when we went to hours instead of days for kids, that did give you more flexibility and more decisions you can make. So, you know, we had, last year's calendar, we had fewer hours above the minimum when we started. We had the equivalent of about 4.5 days of hours over the 1,080. This particular calendar the board approved, I think it was close to, it was 7 to 8 days extra over those hours. So that's the biggest difference, I think.
Even with another flex day, we'd still be 2 days over what we were this year.
Yeah, what's the total number of hours in that calendar meeting?
1,136.
Okay, 1,136, so you have 56 hours over the statutory minimum. So, yeah, you still would have, you could have a number of hours over yet if you did repurpose one.
And the conversation, I mean, right now we're at 178 contact days, and I know that was the 178, we didn't want to go below that, was the conversation. So that if you'd like to change that, I mean, we can do that.
Those get whittled away with snow days.
They do, again, I mean, that's a choice of the board. This year, we didn't, you know, we used all of our hours over the statutory minimum this year for snow events. And then, obviously, we had to make some adjustments in the end and add a little bit of time to make sure we had the 1,080. But again, so that's definitely a board decision, you know, if you want to use those extra hours for snow days. Something else you did this year, or we did this year, was 2 of our snow days, we allowed teachers to collaborate remotely so that they wouldn't have a contact day added on the end. You know, so that's, you know, there are different things you can do. There definitely is flexibility and decision-making within the approved calendar, and you can make changes to it if you want to. I think I would, it would cause some issues if we were changing the start day, just because of contracts we already have and training we have lined up. And I do know that other people do look at our calendar and base some things off that too, other entities. But, again, we can.
Well, I guess I'll just kind of throw in, having been on the board for a long time, no one's ever happy with our calendar. And I felt like the last board meeting, we did try to hit their highlights. They were really strong about that 2-week break, and then it had us move some other things around. We wanted to keep the contact. I felt like a priority was to keep the school days at 178 and not whittle things around. I guess I'm comfortable with what we had. And I know that not everyone's happy, but I don't, you know, I'm not dismissing what they say, but you know that whatever you do, there's a counterpoint to it. And I felt like what we did was compromised, and we did come up with the 2 weeks. That was a strong ask from them. But it caused other issues with our calendar that maybe they don't like in retrospect, but I think it's kind of hard to land on that and also keep the contact days with the kids and not go into, I mean, all those things at the beginning and end of the school year and snow days and everything else into consideration. So I'm still comfortable.
I will echo what she said. I feel the same way.
Any other discussion by the board on this or anything? Okay, we'll move on then. We'll keep that as is. Next is the Board Curriculum Committee meeting report.
Art kind of referenced the focus groups already. Actually, what we talked about is all pretty much in there, in what she has. And the only thing I have to add is that the focus groups are 12 per group maximum, but anyone can be in the group across grade levels and building, and there's $150 stipend, is that right? For the group, and then,
Am I right?
Art's already talked about it, so.
There's no new focus groups, are there? These are all the ones we did.
No, they're just renaming
Yeah.
the technology one to digital learning.
Yeah.
The evaluation and the peer review would be 2 new additional focus groups. And the technology plan was renamed to digital learning environment.
Do we appoint these all at one time each year? And when do we normally do that?
Their application process will start, and it'll be by the end of this school year. Those names will be presented to you so that we can let the teachers know what it'd be for break.
And then the math materials, I mean, it's all in here. The math materials have been selected. It's McGraw-Hill.
That's actually, I think, the next item.
Can they only serve on one committee?
No, they can be on multiple focus groups. We do go in trying to make those selections, get as many different people involved as possible. We also take a look at representation across buildings and grade levels. So it's try to get it as distributed as possible.
Did we get title total for the math, the new math?
Not yet, because they're gonna take a look at that at-risk component.
Oh,
But it will
okay.
be anywhere from, like we said, 105 to 120,000, which would be at or below the estimated
Right.
on the curriculum cycle.
The evaluation and peer review is a new committee.
I saw that.
Okay. You were asking about that. Wilder has some instructional math work that their kids weren't doing very well. And so they developed had a new program. Anyway, I don't know if you want to address that more in depth, but.
Just again to highlight the good things that are going on with our special programs coordinator and our concentrated efforts on special education needs, both at Laura Ingalls Wilder and the middle school. They both were targeted through the state's process the last 2 years because our students with IEPs are not closing their achievement gap as fast as we need them to. And so this was an example of the work that Sarah Baker has been leading along with the principals at those buildings with their special ed teams. It's going very, very well. And in there just gave some commentary from the teachers as to, I would just say kind of their excitement at the growth of their kids, because that's what excites us is when they're achieving, so.
That's it.
Move right into the middle school math curriculum approval, since Donna kind of mentioned that. This would be an action item.
I love action, I move approval.
Motion made by Ken to approve. Seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by
Read
the,
the thing.
any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
7:14, I made my first motion.
Next is the issuance of the 2021-2022 administrative contracts and benefits.
I think I've kind of explained how that system that was in place beginning of the year I came here, how that works. Look at both market factors where we do comparables in like districts, and then also factor in evaluation, and then along with the percentage pool that the board approves us to work with. So this is the end result of that. And there is a range. The difference would be with the performance-based pay, you end up getting a range of increase increases versus the same increase for every employee in that class.
Again, this would be an action item.
I'll move to approve the listed contracts as recommended.
Motion made by Ben to approve as recommended.
Second?
Seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion by the board on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the IT committee meeting report.
Seems so long ago.
It's like a year ago.
No?
You want to take it, Carolyn, while I find it?
Sure, I'm kind of like winging it here. But basically, there's a fiber optic system. It's attached to the old district building. And we found a spot, right?
We did.
And it's in the high school somewhere. I don't know if you have it. It's like, well, you found the spot that's like a closet. Well, it's the building, it's gonna go into the high school building.
Yeah, it's actually
Save me, please.
kind of in a part of the library, but also right on the other side of our main data room as well, so, yes.
Well, it was good to find a spot that made sense, so, yeah. And they'll pay for all the construction needs, because I can't remember what ICN stands for. There we go. Iowa Communications Network will pay for it. So it's a good solution, so it gives us more flexibility with the building across the street whenever we decide we're doing something with it. So,
Just to clarify too, we haven't signed any agreement with
Okay.
them. Still working out some details on what that exactly looks like.
so the Go Guardian, go ahead.
It won't be torn down.
What's that?
Take the
Where
Go
this is
Guardian.
going won't be torn
We would
down.
do
I
that.
can
That's
take
the
it.
case.
I just got it this weekend.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the Go Guardian app is a parent app that it corresponds to the email, the parent email, and it's the primaries. Is that correct? Right. So I just got it this weekend. It came out, and so pull up the app, plugs in my son's information on my screen, so I can look back and see what things he was accessing via his Chromebook. So kind of helps with usage and helps me determine, what things he was doing. So just more.
It was easy to use, that you could do it simply.
What's that?
It was easy to use.
It was very easy to use. Yeah.
If I can figure it out.
That's what I was
That's been the complaint, that they couldn't do it, so that's why
Figure it out.
download the app.
Yeah, if Sue can figure it out, I think we're good to go.
Right. And this was all Japanese to me, so like between
Yeah.
finances and technology.
I'm glad you figured it out, though, that's good.
So that was good. And that's through everybody that has Chromebooks right now.
Yes, that's just the middle school at this point.
Yeah.
We end up with Chromebooks elsewhere that could expand and probably.
Well, that's not to the high school?
Right.
No,
So the real test of these.
it's middle school right now. Yeah. It's a good app though. Like it shows a little bit of a breakdown in usage. So. And then the next one is me. Or you want it?
I was gonna say, it was a real interesting presentation, which I don't know if the whole thing is down here.
Yeah.
But, I think Power School, we made the right choice going to Power School. Obviously, people have opinions with their own experiences, but it really is the one that I think was the right decision. And there's a lot that they're doing and that they can do, so it's definitely not static. There's a lot of things in this. It was really interesting. It took us quite a while to get through it, but it was definitely, I almost felt like at some point, if people still really want to know more about Power School, even from a board standpoint, it might be worth doing the half-hour presentation on this. Because it really, I walked away with it with a lot more understanding of what was there and what it could do and where it's going, and I was impressed. Not saying that I wouldn't be frustrated as a parent, but I think the decision is right that we're using it.
I just have a question. What is the platform we use for like financial dues and stuff? Like there's two different platforms. You have Power School, and sometimes you can go on to Power School and say that you have a zero balance, but then there's a whole nother,
RevTrack.
what is it?
RevTrack.
Are those gonna be synced at all in the near future?
Well,
Why you don't like having 2 passwords?
I can kind of,
Oh, no.
I can kind of answer
No,
part
because
of
every
that.
password is the same of mine, which is the number one thing you're not supposed to do.
I can answer part of that, Sue. So, right now, if a parent logs into PowerSchool, all their fines and fees and that sort of stuff is there, and they can click and RevTrak. So now the lunch piece, and I don't know if that's what you're talking about, is separate. So lunch is its own beast, but you still use RevTrak to pay for that.
Yeah, I just knew on one account it was like all paid, no balance, but there was a balance in the back.
Those two should be synced up, but I don't know. I'd have to look at it and see, but I can't tell you for sure lunch is separate.
Yeah.
Right now, at least right now. We'd like to eventually,
That would be nice to
something
eventually
there,
get.
One thing we learned too from PowerSchool is that they keep purchasing more and more like of their kind of competitors or other products. So it's just becoming bigger and bigger. And sadly, or good for them, I guess, but you know, that Schoology, is it? They're getting ready to purchase, which is something the high school
They did.
teachers
They
wanted.
purchased that. Well,
liked.
it was a tool we did use.
Okay, so that'll be coming back sometime in the near future. And then it sounds like we have to kind of wait for what's on the horizon with the state of Iowa as far as determining how to use a future SIS system.
I haven't heard anything, Art.
I have not either. I've been reading the legislative updates. I can't remember which bill that was in right now. There was a proposal to purchase one or have every school use the same one. I'm not sure that's gonna happen. I've not heard anything about it lately.
Last I knew it was in committee.
Okay.
Education committee of some sort had been moved to that. I know there are states that have gone that route where they've just forced everybody to use the same SIS. So far, we haven't done that.
So there's like a lot of good information about it, and again, like where we've been, where we're at, and what PowerSchool keeps growing to become in the future. So
One of the things I was impressed with the Go Guardian was some of the features they've done, and maybe we have to be pretty proactive showing people, but maybe it's easy with the app, I don't know, because I'm not using it. But you could really, as a parent, if you wanted to, really lock down and have control of the device after the kid gets home. And so, I don't know. I think that's something that at some point we need to really push in case people are interested, because that was concerns they had. You could just turn the thing off. Just really watch everything.
Did you go out
We did.
last week on that?
Yep, I sent that out last
Oh, okay.
Friday.
Yeah.
We had a handful of internal people testing it out that have kids in the district, and then that went out to the all middle school parents on Friday.
good place to do that would be that Screen Agers event.
Yeah.
Or maybe just allude to it, like just as an intro.
Yep, absolutely.
If we end up going one-to-one at the elementary level, that would most likely be Chromebooks based on what we've talked about previously. That would be the same thing. Parents would use that Go Guardian app to be able to monitor and pause the internet or pause usage.
Anything else on IT? Okay. Next is the financial audit for 2020. This is a board action item.
Thank goodness I brought mine.
I think Sue had all the.
Exciting again, right? Maybe not. I'll let Carolyn or Carolyn, you're the only one here. The other people were communities. So.
Well, I would give kudos to Tim for having about 2-3 pages of questions. But no, I think in general, the audit went well. It's a different company than we've used historically. But I guess having it go smoothly is a good thing. I don't know if there's anything really specific to call out.
Our lunch, obviously our lunch.
Yeah,
And they.
Is that a big issue or is
Well,
it
it
not
just-
a big
it's-
issue?
It's a checkbox. It's like every.
So repeated, I mean, it's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
be accounted
repeated.
every year until we get it paid off.
What's that?
I do wish they'd just let you use some COVID money with that and just,
It's past.
I understand. But I'm just saying,
I know there's
we're
a lot
not
of
the only school that.
Right.
I'll move acceptance of the 2019-20 financial audit.
Motion made by Ken to accept financial audit,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the 2021-2022 certified budget.
We'd have a public hearing.
Yes.
Anybody that's here to speak for or against the budget. I take that.
Okay,
You are here for
so we can close it.
that. Yeah.
All right.
This is the same, this is what I presented to you in February. I think we looked at that. Nothing has changed.
Yes.
I worked on that line.
It's like a
really.
blurry and blank. I'm like, oh my gosh. Here it comes.
Just
What do you want, another medal?
by way of information, we did, this is we're asking for approval of the budget that we had published, the maximum levy rate, and have been able to keep that virtually unchanged, a fraction of a penny difference, after having reduced it the last couple of years. So that's, I guess, good news to be steady with the levy rate.
And as I look forward to project the next 5 years, I think it can stay pretty steady.
That's good. I think that's good and important for taxpayers, people moving into town, and just everything that people have been through lately, while valuations keep going up.
Hey Ray, did our Wi-Fi just kind of do something goofy? My stuff's not populated. It doesn't either.
Mine did earlier, but it finally
Came
did.
back? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Yeah, okay. Mine too.
All right.
Well, when people don't know what we're talking about, I think it's a great time to move forward. 2021-22 budget.
Motion made by Ken to approve,
I'll second that.
seconded by Karen. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, any opposed? No. Okay, motion carries 7-0. Next is the auditorium house renovation project.
This is what these guys are doing.
Right.
So,
And again, will anyone here to speak for or against this project?
I am all for.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? All right.
I would agree, I'm all for it.
You
as well.
agree?
We do have the samples if you haven't seen them yet,
Okay.
And we do have 2 seats over in the auditorium.
if you'd like to
And
try
the
out
shop
the
space, you
the
can sit
demo
in.
seats.
The demo
Oh, okay.
seats are over there.
The new
You can
ones.
sit in them.
And are they quiet?
Yes, we all stood up and counted and listened and.
Good.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to the action item.
Approving the project.
Yes, approving the project.
Well, I'm glad we moved approval of the project. I don't know if we want to state it any differently with a dollar amount or,
not yet.
I'm not sure what that means.
This is to approve it for bidding, so it'll go out to bid. Michael's here, yeah.
Approved for bidding then, okay. Okay, motion made by Ken to approve the project for bidding. Seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
So when will we get those bids back? That is due, that's.
Sealed bids will be received by the owner on Tuesday, May 4th at 2 p.m. They'll be read publicly at 2:05. And on Monday, May 17th, there'll be another action item at the school board meeting to approve the award of contract.
Right, the next item is the GO bond, here, the refunding there, and we've got 4 action items? Or 5?
The first one is not an action item.
Okay, so letters B through E of your board packet, page 92.
Actually, C through E.
C through E?
Yeah, C
So
through
just
E.
three.
Yeah, so 3.
C through E on page 92 of your board packet would be the 3 action items. Each one has to be separate.
So is it like I recommend that we approve the resolution of the direct sale, directing the sale?
Directing the sale, yeah.
Second.
Motion made by Carolyn, seconded by Ken. Any further discussion by the board on this one? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I'll go on a roll. I move approval of the resolution authorizing the redemption of outstanding general obligation, school bond series 2016 dated April 27th, 2016, and directing notice to be given.
Motion made by Carolyn,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
And I'll move approval for the resolution to authorize the issuance of approximately $7.315 million of general obligation school refunding bond series 2021 and levying a tax for the payment thereof.
Motion made by Carolyn,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. Now, moving on to the monthly financials.
This is for February. I'd like to see the general fund is coming kind of close together in the balance sheet piece. And I think we'll surpass, surpass by a longer ways as we move with more of this COVID funding that hit in March, so.
Any questions for John on this?
How much did we get on the?
Second round of funding was 1.19, so 1.2 million. Tomorrow there's a meeting that talks about the third round. We don't know what that, we've heard rumors that it's 3 times as much as that, but we don't know that with the stipulations that will go forward. I mean, as we move forward, we're looking like we probably have paid expenses to cover the 1.2 million as of end of March, so.
So you find this all out tomorrow then?
Yeah, so tomorrow I'll know what they're calling it ESSER 3, but I think there's a new acronym as well, so.
You find out what the amount is tomorrow?
I think I find the amount, but also the uses of it, so.
So it could be.
Email us on that?
What's that?
You email us when you find out on
Yeah, I will.
Do they think there's gonna be a lot of strings tied to it? or-
The one thing that I've heard, and I think maybe Art has heard as well, that there's 20% of these funds should be used for learning loss recovery of some sort. I don't know if you've heard anything as well on that.
Not for the amounts, we just discussed some ideas
For
to help recoup that.
Yeah.
recoup the learning loss. Right.
Move to approve the financial reports for February 2021.
Motion made by Ben to approve. Seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Everybody's sounding alike tonight. Next is the facility projects update.
Not a lot there. Of course, we had the auditorium tonight. Punch list is done for middle school, high school cameras, so they're pretty much functional. I think there were a couple spots they're looking at. Nothing new on the gym renovations than what was previously reported. And we continued just kind of the high-level conversations with possible high school projects.
So the middle school and high school security cameras are all up in both places?
They're all up. There's a few, I see less than a handful that are still needing some tweaking.
And the stadium too. Cool.
Did we put signs up that there's cameras?
I don't believe we put any up yet.
I know we did that maybe with the locker rooms and it
Yeah,
seemed.
we did it in the parking lot and when we added those near the high school locker rooms, yep.
We don't know if that's, huh?
I
Do we
think
need to do that? I mean, is that something that we should have up?
we had talked too before just about maybe there being some deterrent value in that.
Yeah.
Make people think twice, hey, you are on camera, so,
Visual warning.
so that, I think it's worth doing.
Yeah. If there's a place that makes sense, I guess, it would make it be expensive to do, but.
Just visit with Bernie and
I
see.
think he was talking about it, I don't know if there's that on the poll, let's find that out.
No, just. Next is the board policies.
Yeah, you don't have minutes this time because the committee members and I reviewed by email. We had some schedule conflicts. You can see the policies we looked at that are here for first reading. I don't know.
Thanks for coming, guys.
I don't know if Ken or Ben want to comment on any.
Yeah, there's two I want to, well, but pretty much out the gate, the word came up a few times, Art, and it was very hard to communicate the way we're doing it, is with the annual meeting or election of officers, and I was saying all of this should be annual. And I don't know if that's what showed up in here or if you have different opinions, so.
Well, I think the wording that came from IASB was organizational. We do meet annually, and then this organizational meeting language that came from IASB synced up with board elections. So some of this stuff we are going to handle every year. Obviously, like the election of officers, we do annually. We added the word annually in here, and a depository and things like that. So I think the disconnect is maybe with the language that IASB uses. Is there a way of putting the two into one? Is that your question? Not distinguishing?
And I'll be happy with first reading tonight, and we can chat a little bit about
Yeah.
cleaning up before the second.
Okay.
But that's the thing I want to make sure we've got.
Okay.
Because that comes up about the office of election and some other
Right,
policies too.
right.
I do want, just overview on a couple of things. That was one of the bigger ones. And I've been pushing and was changed in some of these. We don't make board policy, we make district policy. And we're getting the words to change a little bit in that from where we can. Really, there were just some word changes in all the different things we're doing and all of that. The only other thing that I really had that's not in what Art's got up there is we got I'm trying to think of what the number is for our board ethics.
I think it's 204 maybe.
Okay. We've got a nice paragraph that's what our ethics is. It's not 20 pages that came from IACB. Well, I have a problem. There's a regulation behind that I just as soon drop, and I don't know if Ben is with me on that or Art is, and it reads like the Boy Scout Pledge of Allegiance or code. I'll do this. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life, regulation. I don't think we need a regulation for boards. Code of ethics. We've got the code of ethics. I think that's enough.
And that's a pretty simple matter. If the board wants to retire that exhibit,
Yeah.
we can.
I would like to if nobody else objects, to that.
You're saying remove 204?
204.E1, the exhibit, not the policy, the exhibit.
Oh, okay.
And we reworked that policy itself. You can see February 24th of 2020. So not so long ago, we reworked that. But that exhibit, if you get ready to approve the first reading, you can approve first reading of these and also move to retire that exhibit if you want. And we can make that final next month.
Because the actual policy's in the page before.
Yes, yeah. Other than that, that was about it, just the changing of some language from board policy to district policy was. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading, listed policies, and to retire 204.E1.
Motion made by Ben to do those things.
Second.
Seconded by Ken. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
I actually have something, I think, sorry. Well, no, I was just sitting there kind of doing the counterpoint here. But without it, suppose you had someone on the board that was kind of rogue, and you wanted to make sure that it was operating functionally or, efficiently. Does it help to have 204.E1?
Has never with the road members I've had in all these years.
Okay. I think it's rare, but I just thought, well, that is, it makes some good points. I don't know if it's worth being in the, okay, I'm not gonna push on that.
I will say this committee, this policy committee's been focused on streamlining when we can. Having some shorter policies, retiring some regulations and exhibits. And I guess, a future board, if they go the other way and want to expand policy, then, policies are in a continual review, so there can always be changes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right.
And we will, we'll find a time we can get together prior to our next board meeting if we need to look at the organizational versus annual meetings.
I don't think it'll take very long, so.
Next is the board calendar. We have HR in the morning, and then the work session next Monday, and then finance next week.
Work session at 5:30, right?
Yeah. That's fine.
Right? And next agenda.
Work session's at 5:30.
Yes. And we had talked about venues too. I think we'll have it here. We can set the room up different ways.
Okay.
Depending on who's here, so.
All right, and then anything else by anyone?
That's it.
If any of you are interested, we all get a magazine in the mail called Indianola Living. I suggest you read it, because if you go to page 6, there's a nice big article
Weird.
about
I know.
Weird fancy.
I saw that.
About Rob.
Yeah.
I reread it.
about Rob Keller and his family, and it really
Saw that.
points out that Rob's the loser in the group.
That's right.
Yeah.
You guys,
Speaking of road
you guys, I know.
No wonder he wants
That's
the
it.
ethics
We're not
exam
retiring the
top.
policy.
Knowing his brother, Jess, I don't really too far off there.
Yes.
I don't know about the other two.
I'll move adjournment.
All right, motion made by Ken, seconded by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks for coming. Road policy.
So how much your experience is your
I know.
Just ready to
Yeah.
Yeah, while we're at it.